Palestine takes new seats at United Nations General Assembly. And Washington demands overhaul of Israeli troops conduct in West Bank. Good afternoon, Assalamualaikum Malaysia Madani. I'm Pradil Paul and you're watching World Today. Palestine took a seat among member states at the UN General Assembly, a new right accorded to the Palestinian delegation despite not being a full member of the body. Starting with the 79th General Assembly session, Palestine can submit proposals and amendments and sit among member states. In May, an overwhelming majority of the General Assembly asserted that Palestinians deserve full membership, a move that has been blocked by the United States. The General Assembly granted the delegation certain new rights in a resolution, which still excluded it from being able to vote or be a member of the Security Council. The Palestinian envoy to the United Nations, Riyad Mansour, took his place at a table marked State of Palestine between Sri Lanka and Sudan.
Mr. Honorable President, this is not merely a procedural matter. This is a historic moment for us. The State of Palestine should be seated in the General Assembly among member states, full members. This is history in the making. For 140 or more than that of us, the State of Palestine possesses all the legal elements of a state.
In April, Palestinians who have had non-member observer state status since 2012 relaunched a full membership bid. Full membership would not only need a vote by the General Assembly but would also require a Security Council recommendation. The European Union's top diplomat Josep Borrell warned that increased violence in the occupied West Bank since the Israel-Hamas war erupted meant it risked becoming a new Gaza. Violence in the West Bank has fled alongside the war that escalated since 7 October last year. Borrell said Israel was opening a new front with a clear objective, which is to turn the West Bank into a new Gaza. In rising violence, delegitimizing the Palestinian Authority and stimulating provocations to react forcefully. He accused the Israeli government of trying to make it impossible to create a future Palestinian state.
Yes, without action of the international community, the West Bank will become a new Gaza, and Gaza will become a new West Bank, as settlers' movements are preparing new settlements.
Israeli settler attacks against Palestinians in the West Bank hit a record last year, and the European Union has said last year saw the most settlement building permits issued in decades. Some 490,000 Israelis live in the West Bank in settlements which are illegal under international law, alongside 3 million Palestinians. On a related note, top U.S. officials have demanded an overhaul of Israeli military conduct in the occupied West Bank as they decried the fatal shooting of an American protester against settlement expansion. Ayşenur Ezgi Egi, who is also a Turkish national, was shot dead last Friday at a protest march in Berita, a village near Nablus, where Palestinians have been repeatedly attacked by far-right Jewish settlers. Israel's military said that its initial inquiry found it was highly likely its troops had fired the shot that killed her. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, in their strongest comments to date, criticizing the security forces of Israel, described Agi's killing as unprovoked and unjustified. They separately said Israeli security forces need to make some fundamental changes in the way that they operate in the West Bank, including changes to their rules of engagement. And moving on to the U.S. presidential election, or should I say debate, Kamala Harris savaged Donald Trump as extreme and the friend of dictators, while the Republican branded her as a Marxist, as both candidates sought a campaign-altering moment in their closely fought election. The two held their first and possibly only debate ahead of the 5th November election, with each hoping for a breakthrough in an agonizingly close race. The candidates clashed over issues such as immigration, foreign policy and healthcare, but the debate was light on specific policy details. Harris, 59, appeared to get under the former president's skin repeatedly, prompting a visibly angry Trump, 78, to deliver a series of falsehood-filled retorts. Trump pivoted to an unsubstantiated claim that Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio are eating the pets of residents. Harris's forceful approach succeeded in putting the focus on Trump, leaving her allies jubilant and some Republicans acknowledging Trump's struggles. In a sign of confidence in the debate's outcome, Harris's campaign challenged Trump to a second debate immediately. Trump, who has spent weeks launching personal attacks on Harris, including racist and sexist insults, largely avoided the pattern during the debate's early moments but quickly became agitated under Harris's offensive. Harris and Trump are seeking to gain advantage over each other ahead of an already explosive U.S. presidential election on 5th November. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has survived an early test of his fledgling premiership, where lawmakers back his controversial plan to end field benefits for millions of pensioners. The proposed cuts have sparked anger among some members of parliament within the ruling Labour Party and set up the first flashpoint with its union backers since Starmer took office in July. The furore highlights the challenge faced by Britain's centre-left leader as he tries to fix an economy he says was broken by the previous Conservative government, while also keeping supporters on side. Labour announced in July that it would test the winter fuel allowance, meaning 10 million pensioners will no longer receive help with their energy bills during the cold months. Starmer admitted the move is unpopular but insisted tough choices are necessary to help close a £22 billion black hole in the public finances that Labour claims they inherited from the Tories. The former lawyer is spending much of his first months in power, blaming the Conservatives for a dire economic inheritance. But Tory Member of Parliament accused him of laying the groundwork for possible future tax rises. And in other news, Russian and Chinese warships began joint drills in the Sea of Japan as part of a major naval exercise that President Vladimir Putin said was the largest of its kind for 3 decades. Moscow and Beijing have deepened military and economic cooperation in recent years as both countries seek to counterbalance what they see as a United States-led global order. Putin said Russia's Ocean 2024 exercise will take place in the Pacific and Arctic, as well as the Mediterranean, Caspian and Baltic seas. He noted that it is the first of its type in the last 3 decades. He further said that drills were aimed at testing the combat readiness of Russia's military leadership. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, the drills will involve more than 400 warships, submarines and support vessels and last until 16 September. It added China sent 4 warships and a supply vessel to the exercise, joining Russia's naval fleet in the Sea of Japan. More than 90,000 personnel are taking part in the drills that will utilize more than 120 aircraft and helicopters and about 7,000 units of weapons, military and special equipment. Jordanians voted in the first parliamentary election under a new law meant to dilute the outsized impact of tribalism and bolster political parties. The 2022 electoral law is designed to pave the way for political parties to play a bigger role. Though the election is still expected to keep the 138-seat parliament in the hands of tribal and pro-government factions. The new law, for the first time, directly allocates 41 seats for over 30 licensed and mostly pro-government parties. It also raised the quota for women's representations to 18 from 15 seats and lowered the age for elected deputies to 25 from 30. Jordan retains a voting system that favors sparsely populated tribal and provincial regions over the densely populated cities, mostly inhabited by Jordanians of Palestinian descent. The polls were marked by widespread voter apathy, with initial official figures showing that turnout among the 5.1 million eligible voters was 32.25%, slightly higher than 29% in the last election in 2020. And yet to come, protesters invade Mexico's Senate, suspending debate. Stay tuned. More of that later. But first, 5 people were given emergency care in the French city of Tours with suspected botulism after ingesting a pesto sauce made with wild garlic. Authorities are trying to locate some 600 containers with the same sauce before they are consumed. 2 couples went to hospital on Saturday and a 5th person on Sunday after a birthday meal that they all attended. They are currently receiving emergency attention in the hospital.
Qui, sur la base d'indices convergents, a pris contact avec le producteur d'un produit qui s'appelle aux petits oignons, qui est un pesto à l'ail des ours, qui est produit en Touraine et qui est suspecté, fortement suspecté, d'être à l'origine de cette contamination. Suspicion. Nous avons lancé ce matin le retrait des produits de ce produit aux petits oignons. Nous estimons qu'il y a un lot de ce produit qui est concerné et 600 bocaux qui ont été commercialisés.
Eating food contaminated with toxin is the most common way to contract botulism. Crowds of protesters invaded Mexico's Senate, forcing lawmakers to suspend a debate on controversial proposals by outgoing President Andrés Manuel López Obrador to allow voters to elect judges. The judicial reform plan, which experts say would make Mexico the world's only country to elect all judges, has sparked mass demonstrations, diplomatic tensions, and investor jitters. Senate President Gerardo Fernández Noronha declared an indefinite recess because demonstrators had entered the Senate building. He later called for the debate to resume on Tuesday evening in an alternative location, hours after upper house lawmakers began discussing the proposals. López Obrador argues that in the current system, the courts serve the interests of the political and economic elite, calling the judiciary rotten, corrupt, and rife with nepotism. Opponents, including court employees and law students, have held a series of protests against the plan under which even Supreme Court and other high-level judges, as well as those at the local level, would be chosen by popular vote. The United States, Mexico's main trading partner, warned that the reforms would threaten a relationship that relies on investor confidence in the Mexican legal framework. The wing of a Delta Airlines plane struck a regional jet while taxiing for departure at the Atlanta airport, damaging both planes. The accident resulted in severe damage to the tail of the much smaller regional jet. The Federal Aviation Administration and National Transportation Safety Board both said they will investigate the incident that occurred at the intersection of 2 taxiways. The airline said the wing of a Delta Airbus A350 that was set to depart for Tokyo Haneda struck the tail of an Endeavour Air CRJ 900 that was scheduled to depart for Lafayette, Louisiana, resulting in damage to the tail of the regional jet and the wing of the A350. Endeavour is a wholly owned Delta subsidiary. According to Delta, there were no reported injuries among the 221 passengers on the A350 and 56 passengers on the CRJ 900. A number of near-miss and runway incursions incidents last year raised concerns about U.S. aviation safety and the strain of understaffed air traffic control, prompting the National Transportation Safety Board to call for more technology to prevent collisions. Wildfires fueled by soaring temperatures in the western United States have scorched thousands of acres, forcing hundreds of families to flee. A blaze burning out of control near Los Angeles sparked mandatory evacuations as it tore through swathes of tinder-dry California countryside around popular tourist spots.
The fire is battling itself.
The so-called line fire erupted on Thursday to the east of the city and exploded over the weekend, consuming more than 20,000 acres and threatening tens of thousands of homes and other buildings. Mandatory evacuation orders have been imposed and major roads shuttered as more than 1,700 firefighters battle to contain the fast-moving flames. Another blaze, north of Los Angeles, broke out on Sunday afternoon and had consumed 1,200 acres by Monday morning. Firefighters Firefighters ordered evacuations from the bridge fire as crews tackled it from the ground and from the air. A punishing heatwave that has gripped the region since the middle of last week was exacerbating the problem, with high heat and gusty conditions making the spread of flames less predictable.
Burn clean through, and it's just.
Tropical storm Francine was on track to become a hurricane overnight, prompting Louisiana residents to flee inland and oil and gas companies to shut in Gulf of Mexico production. Francine was developing more slowly than earlier forecasts, but could still wallop the Louisiana coast with life-threatening winds, drenching rains and up to 3 meters storm surge. Peak wind intensity was lowered to 145 kilometers per hour, making it a Category 1 hurricane in the latest National Hurricane Center outlook. The storm was moving off the southern Texas coast and expected to make landfall today near Thibodaux in Louisiana. Its path promises a major test for liquefied natural gas export plants recently built in the region. All refiners and fuel distributors along the Louisiana coast were preparing to weather the storm. Energy companies shut in 412,070 barrels per day of oil production, about 24% of the U.S. Gulf of Mexico production, and evacuated staff from 130 production platforms. The region is home to about 15% of U.S. oil production and 2% of natural gas output. After landfall, the center of Francine is expected to move into Mississippi. And in sports, Lee Sijia climbs 1 rung to world number 3 in BWF rankings. Stay tuned. Malaysia's professional men's singles player Lee Sijia returned to world's top 3 shuttler. In the Badminton World Federation BWF rankings released yesterday, Sijia climbed 1 rung from number 4 to number 3. However, this is not the best world ranking for the 2024 Paris Olympics bronze medalist, as the 26-year-old shuttler was ranked number 2 on Earth. The Road to Gold program needs a continuous allocations to achieve Malaysia's first gold medal mission in Olympic Games. Youth and Sports Minister Hannah Yeoh said it will help to provide necessary support and preparation for athletes ahead of the Los Angeles 2028 Olympic Games.
My hope is that come this budget sitting, Road to Gold will continue to be allocated money to prepare, and not because Road to Gold started 1.5 years before Paris. And so because we are starting early, I do hope to see consistency in the budget every year leading up to LA 2028 and not just ramping up in the final year.
She added, active involvement by athletes in local and international sporting events would also help to strengthen athletes' fortitude in their route to LA 2028. Malaysia backed 2 bronze medals, which were contributed by Lee Sijia and Erentia Sohwoyik in Paris 2024 Games. Asian Cup 2023 finalists Jordan recorded their maiden victory in the 3rd round of the 2026 World Cup qualifiers after defeating Palestine 3-1 in a Group B action at the Kuala Lumpur Football Stadium in Cheras last night. Striker Yazan Al-Naimat emerged as a hero of the Jordanians after scoring a brace, 1 each in the first and second half. Palestine equalized 4 minutes before the first half after Camilio Saldana's cross from the left side was headed in by striker Wessam Abouli. Continuing the second half, Jordan did not wait long to restore the lead after Al-Naimat ended the opportunity with a right-footed shot after receiving Mahmoud Al-Mardi's pass in the 50th minute. After a series of unsuccessful attacks, Jordan finally scored the 3rd goal when Al-Mardi's beautiful pass into the penalty box was finished off well by Selangor FC midfielder Nur Al-Din Al-Rawabdeh, completed Jordan's victory. Palestine, ranked 96 in the world, suffered their first defeat after a brilliant start to the qualifiers when they stole a point after a goalless draw against South Korea, 0-0 in Seoul last week. In another match, toothless Australia failed to score for the 2nd World Cup qualifying match in succession as they were tied in a goalless draw by a gusty Indonesia in Jakarta. The Socceroos dominated in front of almost 80,000 fans at the Gelora Bung Karno Stadium in Jakarta, but Indonesia remained above them in Group C as they seek to qualify for the World Cup for only the second time. It was Indonesia's second draw after a 1-1 score in Saudi Arabia last week, but Australia was shocked in a 1-0 defeat at home against Bahrain in their campaign opener. Australia were by far the better side, forcing a succession of corners with big centre-back Harry Sutar creating havoc in the Indonesia defence. Bayern Munich's 18-year-old Nestori Irankunda was at the heart of all Australia's best attacking play. In the 34th minute, he came within a whisker of putting his side ahead when his right foot thunderbolt rattled the post from 25 yards before rebounding off the back of the diving goalkeeper and away to safety. The second half followed the same pattern as the first, with Australia on top but failing to find any cutting edge in front of goal. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia claimed a late 2-1 win over China on Tuesday to move on to 4 points from their opening 2 games in Group C of the third phase of qualifying. Roberto Mancini's side had to fight back after going behind to an early Ali Lajami own goal, with Al Ittihad defender Hassan Kadish bagging a brace. Lajami put the ball in his own net when he redirected Faye Nanduo's corner past Muhammad Al Owais in the 14th minute. Kadish headed in Nasser Al Dosari's corner to level shortly before halftime. Kadish then decided the game with a powerful 90th minute header after Salim Al-Dosari had earlier hit the crossbar. Over in Muscat, Song Heung-min was on target as South Korea sealed the 3-1 win away to Oman. Entering the match after being held at home 0-0 by Palestine in their Group B opener, the visitors came under even more pressure when an own goal from Jun Song-hyun cancelled out Hwang Hee-chan's opener. Tottenham's Son netted with 8 minutes remaining, however, and Ju Min-kyu put the result beyond doubt deep in injury time to give a head coach Hong Myung-bo a much-needed first win of the qualifying campaign. The result sees South Korea climb to second in the group on 4 points, trailing leaders Jordan on goals scored with Iraq, still to play Kuwait later on Tuesday. Oman, meanwhile, sit rock bottom on 0 points. Japan thrashed hosts Bahrain 5-0 in Vrifa on Tuesday to secure maximum points from their first 2 matches in the third round of Asian World Cup qualifying. Feyenoord striker Ayase Ueda opened the scoring from the penalty spot in the 37th before adding his second soon after the restart. Sporting midfielder Hiremasa Morita would go on to bag his own brace before substitute Koki Okawa completed the goal glut in the 81st minute to hand Hajime Moriyasu's side a comprehensive 5-0 defeat. With a goal difference from 12 from their first 2 matches, having also put 7 past China in the Group C opener, Japan sit top of the standings on 6 points, 2 clear of Saudi Arabia in second. And still in football, under pressure, French League president Vincent Labrune is said to be waved through for a new term in elections yesterday after none of his main rivals managed to secure the support needed to stand. Labrune was one of the only 2 figures to receive the backing of 2 syndicates, Foot Unis, which brings together professional clubs in France, and the UAF Union, which comprises players, coaches, referees, doctors, and other administrative staff involved in running the sport. The other presidency candidate was Carl Olive, a serving deputy in the French National Assembly who was designated by the French Football Federation to represent it at the league. But Olive is not actually a candidate to be president of the LFP, leaving the way clear for Labrune to remain in a position he was occupied since 2020. That is despite Labrune, a former president of Liga A giants Marseille, being the subject of criticism after the LFP's search for a new domestic broadcaster for the next 5 years turned into a fiasco. The LFP, which oversees the top 2 divisions in French football, had hoped to approach €1 billion a year for the sale of its rights to domestic broadcasters. In the end, it agreed a deal worth only €500 million a year with British streaming platform DAZN and Qatar's beIN Sports, with that amount 20% down on the previous contract. Argentine Mauricio Pochettino has been named as the new head coach of the United States national team. The former Tottenham Hotspur, Chelsea, Paris Saint-Germain and Espanyol coach replaces American Greg Berhalter, who was fired in July after a disappointing Copa America campaign. Pochettino is the biggest name coach to take charge of the USA and the first foreigner since German Jürgen Klinsmann, who was sacked in 2016. Pochettino, 52, has been unemployed since his abrupt departure in May from Chelsea after just a single season in charge. No details of the contract length was provided by US Soccer, but Pochettino will lead the team in the 2026 World Cup, which the USA is co-hosting with Mexico and Canada. Pochettino has a track record of promoting young talent at Southampton, Tottenham, and Spanish side Espanyol earlier in his managerial career. At Tottenham, Pochettino played a key role in shaping the career of England captain Harry Kane, and he turned Spurs into regular top four finishers, while also getting them to the Champions League final in 2019.
Sabah menjadi tuan rumah untuk sambutan Hari Malaysia Peringkat Kebangsaan 2024.
Bertemakan Malaysia Madani Jiwa Merdeka.
Bertempat di Padang Merdeka, Kota Kinabalu, Sabah.
Saksikan secara langsung pada hari Isnin 16 September 2024.
Bermula 8.30 malam
di TV1.
Akulah Malaysia, kamulah
And that wraps up our bulletin this afternoon. Our headlines today: Palestinian takes a new seat at United Nations General Assembly. Do join us again this evening on TV1 and Saluran Berita RTM for more. Alternatively, you can stream us online on RTM Click's website and mobile application. Till then, Malaysia. I'm Brenda Lepal, Malaysia Madani, Jiwa Merdeka. Thank you for the company.